Let's talk about healthy relationships and distance. So, I'm going to use a metaphor about my children. My 4-year-old daughter often comes up to my infant son who will be just sitting and hanging out, and she'll get in his space, and just the act of her coming into his space knocks him over. And I keep trying to say to her, he can't see you when you get that close. He can't see you. So he doesn't know that you're trying to play with him. All he sees is a big blur. And then he falls over because you're energetically also in his space, which knocks him over. He loses his own ground and his own balance. So I want to equate this to relationships because for whatever reason, there's so much turmoil coming up about relationships right now for so many people, and there's nothing worse than hearing a grown person that you love bawling and trying to understand why somebody just doesn't love them or why somebody won't be with them. So I want to talk about this because as animals, which we are in nature, the way in which we come into relationships is that we, let's just go predator prey for a second, or let's just use this metaphor, is that something will be moving. A predator will see movement and go, oh, I want that thing, right? So there's enough distance between them to create the gap that creates desire. And then they can, the moving thing that continues moving in the outer world is a focal point for the other animal, okay? And in relationships, we have to simultaneously be both. So a lot of times what we do in relationships, especially if we are in unhealthy dynamics growing up, is that we think relationships are a prison. So we will build this amazing house for our relationship, and then we never leave the house. And a house is supposed to be like the mother of an infant who is home base, right? And then in toddlerhood, after the home base is established, the infant goes out into the outer world and comes home to feel secure and to be sheltered. But they feel good enough to go out into the outer world. But what happens in relationships is we desire somebody else to be our entire world, and then we imprison ourselves to the house that we built, and the house isn't meant to be stayed in necessarily. And what will happen is then we just look in this mirror at the other person in our house and go, I'm in prison, you're in prison. We resent each other because we're in prison, and we're not looking out to the outer world. So we're not creating enough distance and space energetically by being an individuated sovereign being in our relationship to go out into the outer world. So at one point in the beginning of relationships, it is true, we have to build the house together. We establish the house. But once the house is established, we have to open the door and walk out individually, only so we have enough space that the other person can see us as an individual. So if you're in the mediocrity of the rabbit hole of being in a relationship that you go, I can't see myself, I can't see him, or I can't see her, whoever it is for you, and it feels like a prison. There is something to say for going out, and this is not about separation. This is about union, actually, and it's about individuation with union and extension from the core to an outer core, knowing that that inner core is there, right? So we have to take our focus off of the relationship at some point in the relationship and onto the outer world. And once we do that, because relationships aren't supposed to be two people looking at each other like this all the time. They're supposed to be two people walking out into the world together side by side, right? And coming back together side by side. And oftentimes we go, all I can see is you, all I can see is me in this mirror that you're projecting on me, and it's terrible because I don't like what you're seeing and I don't like what I'm seeing. And we stop seeing. Right? We just stop seeing the other person because the other person isn't moving in the outer world. And if you're like, I am a parent of young children, so it's very hard, right? This stage is natural, normal, right? But it is something to look at when we have to energetically say, okay, I'm going to be the animal at some point, and this is only an energy that takes my focus off of this inner prison that we're in and looks out into the outer world for a little bit. And that might be, I'm going to go out with my friends, or I'm going to go dance, or I'm going to do something spontaneous for me that reminds me of me. That is what I would do if you weren't here. This is a big one. I have so many people who wait and wait and wait until they see their person and then they go, okay, well, what do you want to do? And the other person's like, I don't know what to do. And we're not doing what we naturally would want to do. And that makes us inauthentic. And then we become hard to see. And then we become the people who, like my daughter, are encroaching so much on the space of the other person that they can't see us. And it's not any fault of our own, and it's not their fault. It's that if we just pulled back and kept our distance energetically, like withdrew a little bit, and that's not withdrawing in love, it's not withdrawing in behavior, but energetically just like, I'm going to sit right here instead of get all the way in your face and knock you over. And I'm going to create enough distance between us that you can actually see me. Because we get so like, you can't see me, you can't hear me. And it's because we're not creating enough space to be seen and heard by actually moving our essence in the outer world. So in whatever way, if you're in this, if you know exactly what I'm talking about today, and you're going, oh my God, like I'm in this relationship that I don't know either how to get out of or how to get into, because why the hell would I want to get into this? This feels like prison. You got to leave the house. And that starts just simply by energetically focusing, just, okay, I'm going to walk out the door and I'm going to go do something that feels like me and I'm going to come back. And in that, and maybe you guys walk out the door together and you do something that feels like you, or they do something that feels like them, and you get to watch them be the animal that you wanted to chase in the first place, right? So relationships require movement. And if you're in that phase of like stagnation and imprisonment, and I'm being, knocked over, or I am knocking this person over by projections and we can't really see each other, take your energy and focus on, okay, if I wanted this person to see me, who am I actually? What would I do if they weren't here? Let me go do that thing. And I'm not saying go cheat on your partner or whatever. What I'm saying is, if you have an inclination to have a certain kind of food and your partner doesn't care, and you go, okay, well, what I really want is Indian food. And they go, okay, well, I don't really care. Go have Indian food. And if they don't want it, go have it without them. If that's an acceptable thing in your relationship. But the point is that we have to create enough authentic essence and distance ourselves enough from the relationship that we feel so stagnant in by creating movement for ourselves in the outer world. Okay? And that is the way that we are going to be seen and heard, because that's going to create the distance in which we become the animal that is seductive in the outer world. That person goes, whoa, I would like to know what that animal is like, and I would like to see that animal in motion, and I would like to see the grace in which they move. And we get so caught up in the fishbowl of just, this is how I see you, and I think you're an asshole, and I think you're a bitch, and this is annoying. We have to put ourselves in situations in which we can be seen as ourselves, but that requires us to have distance from our relationship, in the sense that even if it's like, okay, we're going to go out together, but I'm going to go on the dance floor while you sit over here because you don't want to go dance, and that's cool with me. I don't need you to come dance with me. I'm going to go dance because that's me, and you get to watch me, and I get to watch you watch me, or whatever it is for you. Just energetically, if you notice that you're the person waiting for this person, so you're getting so like, okay, I'm waiting for you, I'm in your face, I'm like, hey, play with me, play with me, play with me, you're knocking them over. And then they become not themselves. And then you don't have a relationship, and you can't leave the house because they're paralyzed, and you're going, hey, just don't you want to come with me? Let me pick you up and carry you. And they're like, no, dude, I wanted to like actually be my own person in this relationship. I don't want somebody to carry me. So we have to create enough distance. And if you're that person who's like pushing to get your agenda, to get them to love you, to get them to see you, they can't see you when you're that close. So you have to kind of pull back your energy to be seen as the essence and the animal that you actually are. I hope this was helpful. Bye, guys.